cover nice. Out in the wild.
Turkey.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Callum and I'm an engineer at M Sport, and this season I've been working with Adrien for Mo.
Hello, my name's Jamie. I'm an engineer at M Sport and I was working with Gus Greensmith in Greece.
So today we're going to do the Dovenby. So today we're going to do the Dovenby Debrief, and we're just going to discuss some of the challenges that we encountered in Greece.
Let's take that one.
Yeah, it's been quite a long time since we've been in Greece, so obviously we've got all the the data from back then, reports, etc. that we looked through before we got there. To be honest though, not a lot of it is that relevant because we're on a different car since then, so a lot of it doesn't really carry over from one car to the other, but a lot of the stuff like protections, ride heights, that kind of stuff we take into account, but we base it more on what we've done in the last couple of seasons on rough gravel events and take it from there.
Engineers at recce encountered a few challenges. Normally we do the stages the day before the cruise. On this occasion we got through one day unscathed, but then the rain sort of hit during that day and into the evening, which meant there was very challenging conditions for our second day. We arrived at stage 7 to recce and it was closed because there was fog and really bad conditions, and that was the same time as the crews were recceing it. So yeah, we had to do a bit of a detour to go and do another stage, which added a few hours onto our day. We didn't actually recce any stages until like midday that morning, which was a bit frustrating, but it is what it is. And to be honest, for us just driving through the stages, it doesn't matter so much. We're just taking notes for our own interest and also to feed back to the crews. But really, it did play its part in sort of mixing up the conditions for the crews, because they were trying to write recce notes whenever it was foggy and whenever it was very wet and muddy, whereas on the rally it could be quite a bit drier. So actually trying to write pace notes for conditions that are going to change in a few days' time is very difficult, to be honest.
The rules or the regulations this year state that you only get 8 of the secondary choice, and obviously Greece being a hot rough gravel event, you're going to take the hard tyres your primary choice. But then with the weather leading up to the event, it was quite apparent that we would need a quantity of soft tyres. We anticipated that these would be needed later on in the weekend, but they could be used on the Friday, so it was a case of how to manage the package. Do you use them on Friday and risk destroying them completely and having nothing left for the rest of the weekend, or do you have to save them for later in the weekend? So the questions were kind of raised before the event, if this quantity would be increased to 12. It's not something we were pushing for, the drivers were more. It's as long as we've got an idea of how many we've got for the weekend, we can plan based on that, how to kind of maximise the package. It's not ideal, but as long as we've all got the same and we know what we're working with, we can manage it.
Yeah, so Friday morning there was only a tyre fitting zone between the first and second pass of one of the stages. So normally the cars would come back from service, or come back to service in between the two loops, and we'd have a proper good check over the car, check the data, make any changes to the setup as well. On this occasion, in the tyre fitting zone, you can only use what's in the car, and there's one mechanic who can help the crews make the changes. You can't do any big sort of hardware changes. So you can't change springs or roll bars or dampers, but you can change some damper click settings, or you can change the ride height, or we have some adjustability in the roll bar position, so you can go into some details like that. On this occasion, it didn't really affect the stages too much, because there was only one of the stages was ran twice. So the crews had to be a little bit higher for that to take into account some bigger rocks being pulled out and some ruts in that stage. But really, it wasn't a major change and didn't play didn't play too much of a role in the final results.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a road section on the way to stage 13 on Sunday morning, and when Adrien was warming his tyres, he noticed there was a misfire. So obviously this is immediately before the stage, so he got the old blower and reported this issue. So we then just take steps to find the quickest things to change first, to see if they rectify them. So in this instance, we changed an ECU. That didn't fix the issue, and then we changed the spark plugs, and this did rectify the issue. Unfortunately, it's not the fastest job to complete. He did it in a good time, to be fair, but he still, he checked in late for the stage, and received a few minutes in penalties. So if this happened earlier in the road section, he would have had time to change them and then make up a bit of time, but it was just unfortunate. It was immediately preceding the stage. So in that situation, you don't have time to start changing each individual one, starting it to see what if it's rectified. So the quickest thing is just to change them all.
Right.
The fourth one, I believe, is a bit harder to access.
So I think in that instance he changed the three.
Yeah,
the three that are easy to access, and then before sort of taking on the job of changing the fourth one, which it's not a big time. It's just an extra 3 or 4 minutes. But whenever you're talking about penalties, it's quite a lot of TC time. So yeah, you need to be careful with that. So yeah, he tried after changing 3, but unfortunately he didn't pick the lucky one that was causing the issue in that. Yeah, well, obviously we got some split times through the stage, so we knew that on the first split he was really competitive, and then again in the third and fourth splits he was right on the pace. So yeah, it's quite easy to distinguish, roughly how much time he loses in one split. Then again, in the data we can also check to see how long the car has stopped for. So I think in this instance the car had physically stopped for like 5 or 6 seconds, but that doesn't really take into account the loss of flow and the loss of rhythm through the stage. So it takes time to actually stop the wheels to start with during the spin, and then it takes time to get back up to proper racing speed. So really I think it was in the region of 10 seconds he probably lost. Difficult to say exactly, but as a rough ballpark it was 10 seconds, and I think that maybe would put him in third or fourth position. So yeah, maybe it wasn't quite enough to win, and I think the guys at the top were really setting the pace and pushing quite hard. So yeah, any small time loss is going to push you down the positions quite quickly. In this instance as well, to be honest, after you've had a spin, even though you can be back up to speed, you're not going to be pushing the limits again in case you make another mistake. So yeah, to be honest, it looked like he could have been thereabouts based on the first and the last 2 splits, but it's one of those things you'll never really know.
I think probably just another key thing to say about Greece for our drivers was the fact that it's not been in the championship for so long, so it's a new event for both of them, and I think it's been announced now it's going to be in the calendar next year. So actually gaining experience on these events was one of the key kind of factors that we discussed with them before the event, because with the hybrid next year, knowledge is going to be pretty important. So
yeah, that could be a big factor in new rallies, is how good the drivers are at writing pace notes from scratch, because a lot of those guys won't have had any reference for starting for your pace notes. So and I think that's something that should be challenged in the championship, year on year, is the ability to write pace notes from scratch and then drive to them. I think some of the rallies that have been there year on year, as nice as they are to go back to, a lot of the top drivers and the guys who are really experienced, know some of the stages off by heart. So you're not really challenging the pace note writing skill, which is a skill that should be challenged, I think, in rallying. You are just driving to memory sometimes.
Yeah, it changed the balance of the car quite a bit. So Friday we spent each stage just trying some different options to try and get the balance back. We never really achieved what we wanted. Obviously, yeah, there was the flip side of it. There was less drag as well. But what we lost in downforce like air performance was definitely a hindrance on Friday.